Okay, we're back, and you probably won't believe what the heck I've been going through for the past 3 days on this Silvertone 4565 chassis. And it was my own mistake, and just, it took so long to doggone it. There's a lot of my techniques that I didn't follow in the beginning, and it led me on a wild goose chase. So that's why I stress, develop your techniques real well. With me, being 72 years old, and the mind is kind of like my doggy is kind of reeling out there. I do a Joe Biden syndrome, and don't realize that I'm seeing one thing and writing down another. So consequently, I put my dick in the dirt, yeah, on this one, and it took 3 days, 2.5 days, pretty much. I finally got it fine-tuned, and it's operating now. But for the longest time, a couple of days there, and to compound it, trying to think when it was 104 out, and I'm in the shed. I had to break throughout the afternoon until the sun dropped a little bit in the west, so that the building would cool off a little bit, so I could get back in here and kick my brain back in order. So there was a couple of days there that, that's probably 12 hours I lost over a couple of days trying to get this thing figured out. And what happened was, when I traced this out, I pretty much got everything true. Everything was copacetic. Even the coils here I identified. And I figured, well, I think you could remember on one of the earlier videos, I mentioned that I didn't want to pull these coils to check them and everything, and consequently, that mica cap right there was buried underneath those two. It's inside the coil there, and ties B to D. So I, like others on the Antique Radio Forum, I scoped out some of the posts on Silvertone 4565 and got some information from some of those posts as to people were having problems finding that number 13. Well, I had found it before reading the post, but I never figured it would probably be an issue. But because I didn't want to have to remove these coils. But when I first powered this thing up, after doing the recapping and getting everything all back in, and my tubes came in, the ones that I didn't have,
Coordinated Universal Time.
I wanted to power it up after the tubes came in. I got them all through, and then I kind of got some things, and then other things I didn't even get, and then it was dumb as a post. So I thought, that's never happened. Well, it hasn't happened this drastic to me on other radios. So right away, the brain started freaking, and I'm thinking that, okay, you screwed something else up in this circuitry. On this radio, it's pretty easy to keep track of which is what. It was doggone calls, man. I get spam calls every day, about 6 times a day. Okay, that trimmer, and that trimmer on the right side of this dual stack here are all for the broadcast band. The other ones on the other side of the thing, that's all for the shortwave band. And these 3 here on these coils, all of those are for the police band. So, I mean, it was very simple to split out the circuits for each of the bands. So whenever I was having a problem dialing things in, I mean, I could get something on one band and nothing on another, and nothing on the other. I'd make adjustments to it and still nothing. I mean, I racked my brain real good until the heat took over and I said, ah. So I went in and sat with Doggy and cooled down for a while until the evening. Well, long story short, I figured, well, oscillators aren't working on 2 of the 3 bands. And it just so happens that it was kind of working on the broadcast band, but nothing on the other 2. And these coils in here on some of these lugs, well, some of them are shared with the shortwave band and other ones are shared with the broadcast band. So I figured, I'm not getting an oscillator, at least it don't seem like it, so I'm going to have to pull these coils. Looks like, after all. Well, I did. All 3 of those, one at a time, pulled them out of there. And I guess it was a good thing because I managed to determine which coil was what and what the lug configuration on them was. This one here is for this one up here, and I got it coded for lowercase a, b, c, d through to h. So there's 8 lugs on this over 1, 2, 3, 4 coils. So I checked each one and I took ohm readings on between the lugs to find out which one was in. So, and I kind of estimated, well, the shortwave band coil was easy enough to count the loops. But the broadcast band, I mean, look at that. I mean, gee, So, some of them I estimate because there wasn't so many loops. I did that for the antenna coil. I did it for the RF coil, which is the second one, the middle one in the line. And I did it for the oscillator coil, which is the one on the back, right there. And I'll be darned if every last one of those was good. I could change over after all that. But this is the good thing that came out of it. I got diagrams of them and split out the coils. So, anybody wants to know anything, just let me know and I'll kick these things to you in a quickie. Now, here's the kicker. I almost slapped myself with a rubber hose when I realized what I did. After finding out that the coils were all okay and shoving them back into the doggone thing and getting them back, because I tell you, it was a little work, but it wasn't bad. I mean, it wasn't as gross as I thought it, as I envisioned it. The mind can play real dirty tricks on you if you let it. That's why I say, you know, you develop your techniques and you won't suffer so hard. So after that, I decided, well, something else is amiss somewhere. So I decided I'm going to go through and do a search and destroy on all of the schematic. So setting everything else of my drawings aside, I decided to start picking up and tracing the connections to everything. I started here on the antenna and went that way. I already had information concerning the connections on the band switches, so that was not going to be too much of a hard tracing. So what happened was, as you can see, I went through tube by tube all the pins and traced them out all the way to the, I enlarged these up so that I wouldn't have to dink around with the tiny little schematic that I had from that I printed out, because some of them you can't read anything. So I traced them all back to a normal ending, a typical ending place, either on the rectifier tube or the E-caps or the plug. Well, when I got to there, now here's the clinker. This connection right here comes over. This is your tuner section. There's RF, oscillator, antenna, RF, and oscillator. This is your tuner section. Antenna, RF, oscillator. Yeah. Well, that line right there comes over. It does not touch. It does not connect to anything. It's like a whisker that just impresses human engrams onto the computer parts. So I got to that point and realized that I had that A8 lug 5 attached up here on the middle wafer. This is the middle wafer. I could not see it here. It came off and comes over to here on the oscillator wafer. That's this one here on the rear. So once I took that lead off of lug 5 from that point and moved it to this point, everything came alive. But still wasn't right. So yeah, this is getting along. I had to do a dance on just about everything, because when I get the upper dial on the AM band dialed in, and I'd lose the lower half. Bring the lower half back in, I'd lose the upper half. So back on the Antique Radio Forum, I found where people had problems with these two components down here. There's a little mica cap, and there's a resistor paralleled on the leads to the connection points on this. Well, some people on the forum were saying, Yeah, it's okay. Eliminate those two. It'll still operate on. Well, yeah, it operated, but it didn't operate very good.
At the tone,
Also,
15 hours,
the
26 minutes, coordinated
there's a
universal
370 pico that went across the leads on the pattern. Well, when I make an adjustment on that, I'd lose one thing and gain another. And it would be a back and forth, back and forth, back and forth between the trimmers on the broadcast band and the pattern. Adjust the upper part of the band, lose the lower part of the band, lose the upper. So I went in there and I put an additional wafer of mica on the pattern, and I changed out the 370 domino cap across the terminals with a mica 370. This one down here, I clipped the resistor out because I figured, well, I'll make a start with that, seeing as how Antique Radio Forum says, yeah, get rid of both components and put a straight line across there. Well, I clipped the resistor out and figured, well, I'll take a wait and see, and if there's a problem, I'll clip out the mica cap. Well, I never got to that point. But what I did do this morning, tried to bring this thing back up and make adjustments to it to see if I could bring in both areas of the broadcast band. And I got it pretty close, but then there was some in the middle that was a lot of frequencies in there that I wasn't picking up that I usually would. I went through and I checked the old resistor, and it was a little short, so I put in a 200. It calls for a 260. It doesn't call for that resistor at all. At least in the schematic, it's a phantom resistor. I don't know how in the hell they came up with it. I don't see any service bulletins on adding it in or making the modification to the chassis or whatever. So I decided to take a 270. The old one was a 260. It was short. It was like 230. This one here is a 270. So I stuck this one in there. Bang! Light bulb went off. Flash bang. Everything came to life. I couldn't believe it. I got all the stations into the thing, and I'm picking up most frequencies on the shortwave band. I'm picking up a lot of frequencies on the police band. I'm picking up in between stations that weren't there on the broadcast band. This thing is a powerhouse. I mean, it's functioning. It scares me. It's operating so good. But it took 4 days, darn near, to get it to this point. Anybody that has problems with this, and there's some people on Antique Radio Forum that was going through the bug tussle syndrome also. And hopefully they were in a cooler climate. So anyway, I just wanted to sit down and talk about the situation that I had over the last few days and relieve myself by tugging on your ear strings.
providing time of day, standard time interval, and other related information. Inquiries regarding these transmissions may be directed to the National Institute of Standards and Technology, radio station.
So now that I've got this thing operating, we're gonna put it. We're gonna let it play for a few hours. She's pulling 550 milliamps at about 118 volts. this morning. I still got to go through now and check voltages on all the tube pins that's identified in here for having voltage. And then I put some old makeshift Philco shields on it just to keep the interactions down while I made tests and stuff. I still got to buff up those goats. The cabinet is still out there waiting for me to doggone get to it again. I wanted to get this done in the worst way, because this is the radio. The cabinet is not the radio, and the shields are not the radio and everything. So I wanted to get this working. So hopefully you guys managed to live through this entire video. Thanks again for being there and helping me get these out and shared. The likes are really important now, and the comments. I really appreciate the comments, because it keeps my mind working. So you guys have a good day. Today is Thursday, the 21st, I think. So enjoy your day. Stay frosty, as Monkey says, and there'll be more video coming. Thanks for watching.